There's a fashion and clothing company that's doing really, really well right now, especially when we put it into the context of everything that's happening in the world. And it's surprising that this one company is doing so well because a lot of companies in the fashion and apparel space are struggling right now to get anyone's attention and getting anyone's money. So when I'm scrolling through TikTok and Instagram and I see another Aritzia haul, I couldn't help but ask myself, why is this company doing so well? And how long is their success going to last? For full disclosure, I've never bought anything from Aritzia. I have owned a TNA bag before that was given to me as a gift from a friend, but I do have a lot of friends that are really obsessed with Aritzia and shop there a lot. So this video is really inspired by a combination of seeing a lot of my friends love this brand, a lot of hype about it on social media, but also seeing some numbers from investors on Wall Street that are excited about where this company is going. It seems inevitable to be talking about Aritzia right now. If you shop at Aritzia or you invest in the company, or you just really like digging into the business of fashion and beauty companies, you are in the right place. Before we dig into the data, let's quickly talk about Aritzia for those of you who are not familiar with the brand and are watching this video just out of curiosity. If you're outside of North America, there's a high chance you haven't seen any of their stores unless you've been scrolling on your social media feed and seen it there. The store has an obsessive following. It's the kind of following that you would see for a celebrity. A few weeks ago, the company had a warehouse sale in Vancouver, Canada.
Every year I say I'm not gonna go, but here I am again. The most dystopian thing is happening in Vancouver right now. Around 96,000 people gather, camp out the night before, and wait 6 hours in line for the Aritzia warehouse sale.
Kind of reminded me of the hype we saw with Rhode Skin last summer, and I made a whole video about that. Recently, Morgan Stanley, which is an investment bank and financial institution, did a survey with its Gen Z interns. It asked 500 interns everything from their favorite exercise methods to their favorite clothing retailers. And what did they learn? They learned that Gen Z is really loving Aritzia right now.
She's a big one.
Every summer, I never feel like I have the right pieces, so we're starting early. We're gonna do a try-on haul, and hopefully you guys get some outfit inspo.
Aritzia is up there in the top among favorite brands of Gen Z, and so is Hoka, and I did a video on Hoka, which you can also watch on my channel. But Aritzia really climbed the ranks among young people, which is surprising because young people who may be struggling financially have a lot of choice when it comes to inexpensive stuff, like they have Temu, and they have Amazon, and they have Shein. So for them to actively be choosing Aritzia is interesting. Okay, so what is the data showing? When we look at Aritzia's stock price, we can see that the company is up above 60% this year, around 67% at the time that I'm making this video. This means if you invested your money into the company back in January, you would have been up 67% on that investment. Let's compare that with Lululemon, which is another popular clothing and apparel company, and we can see it's down 54%. American Eagle, which wasn't doing too well earlier this year, had a big boost from Sydney Sweeney's Little Jeans Are Blue campaign. If you saw that back in the summer, there was so much controversy around it, and just for a couple weeks it completely took over the news cycle. You know what I'm talking about, right? It made headlines and people were really upset. But even with Sydney Sweeney's boost, the company is still up only in the teens compared to Aritzia's 67%. This tells us that investors are really optimistic about the future of Aritzia. Even when we look at the company's adjusted EBITDA as a percentage of net revenue, fancy way of saying that out of every dollar that a company makes from sales, that's how much is left over after covering its day-to-day costs like its taxes and loans. So when we look at the adjusted EBITDA as a percentage of net revenue, we're looking at how efficient the business is at turning sales into operating profits. And in Aritzia's case, adjusted EBITDA was $406.3 million or 14.8% of net revenue, which is an increase of 87.2% compared to $217 million or 9.3% of net revenue in fiscal 2024. So when I looked through this data, it made me want to investigate further. There are so many reasons that fashion companies can fail. What is the CEO promising in this terrible market that we're seeing right now? So let's get to the bottom of this together. If you're new here, I'm a business journalist. I've covered many stories while working on Wall Street in finance and business and economics. And on this channel in particular, I tell stories about beauty and fashion using numbers and data. You can subscribe and turn on the post notifications so you don't miss future videos. And I heard that YouTube actually has this new feature called Hype. which I've never used. So if you want to hype this video, it can reach more people, and give it a quick like. I'm going to break this episode down into 2 parts, highlighting what Aritzia is doing well and what people are loving, and then highlighting the challenges that the company might face. Okay, the first thing when it comes to what is Aritzia doing well is something that might seem obvious but isn't entirely obvious, and I'll explain why, which is marketing. Something that Aritzia has done really well in the past few years is marketing. In fact, I went through the word marketing and it came up 24 times on their last call to investors in a positive way, in that they were talking about the strength of their market. Now, this shouldn't really shock anyone because any company that ever exists has to do marketing to get their product in front of people so people buy it, because if people don't buy it, you don't really have a company. But there's something interesting going on with Aritzia's marketing in particular that makes them stand out when you compare it to other clothing and apparel brands. First, Aritzia took influencer marketing really seriously early on. Before the pandemic, the former CEO Brian Hill mentioned Bella Hadid, Kendall Jenner on calls with investors, saying that these influencers were a key part of their growth. He also said that customers of the company are responding extremely well to a post from a YouTuber who had 16 million subscribers. And he didn't specify which YouTuber that was, but I'm kind of curious. So if you were watching YouTube back in 2019 and there was an influencer that had 16 million subscribers who promoted Aritzia, let me know in the comments. But that post that the influencer did within one day got Aritzia 10,000 new Instagram followers, and they said their rate of sale of the item that the influencer promoted increased over 700%. Huge. Now, the strategy with influencers was done really well because at the time they were also heavily focused on rapidly expanding in the US. They had been in the US for a while at that point, but they were going to be opening up more and more stores. Little did they know that a pandemic was on its way, but that's what the plan was back in 2019. And the US is a really tough market to tackle. Anyone that has grown a business outside the US and then gone to the US will know that the consumers in that country, if you live in the United States, are completely different than people in other countries. A common mistake that I've seen a lot of business executives make in my years of reading into companies is they assume that Canadians and Americans are very similar. I don't know why people think that, because these countries have very different policies, different populations, different mindsets, but they think if a company is successful in Canada, then it's going to be successful in America and vice versa. And one example I can think of this off the top of my head is Birchbox. But Birchbox is that beauty subscription service that was really popular in the 2010s. And basically you paid, I think it was $10 a month, and you received a beauty box in the mail with different tiny samples that you could try, and then you could go on their website and buy the larger products. And they launched in Canada in around 2014, thinking they would see the same kind of success that they saw in the States. And it turned out that due to cost of manufacturing and just different mindset in Canada, consumers are a lot less experimental than they are in the States. The company ended up shutting down. So Aritzia's plan to expand in the US was not a guaranteed success, and influencer marketing was just one aspect of how they're going to guarantee some amount of success in the US. They face challenges of entering a country that is very competitive, but that's where the company was prepared, because by fourth quarter in 2019, US revenue grew by 40% for the company, and Hill credited the company's strong marketing efforts as one of many factors that helped accelerate the company's brand awareness in the US. Even today, when I was going through the company's latest reports, I saw that net revenue increased 33% to $663 million compared to $498 million in the first quarter of 2025. And in big part, they credit this growth again to their marketing strategy. So what is that strategy apart from influencer marketing, which a lot of companies are doing now? Well, I'll let you listen into a part of their call yourself and let me know if you hear what I hear.
This was driven by a robust demand for our spring-summer assortment. In addition, our focus on full funnel marketing fueled an increase in e-commerce traffic of nearly 50% in the United States.
She said full funnel marketing. This is something that Aritzia has really focused on recently, and they have nailed it. Instead of just running passive ads that get clicks or just focusing on a brand's awareness, full funnel covers your entire journey as a customer. From when you first learn about the brand to when you might consider buying from them, to when you go to their website and you put something in their cart and you still haven't made that decision to buy it, but that last minute decision and the things that influence it is also part of full funnel marketing. So it's all the way from you discovering what that brand is and then making the decision to actually buy from it. But it doesn't just end there. It's also the decision to come back and buy more. And this strategy has worked really well for Aritzia, because look what they say later in that same call.
We also continue to drive meaningful growth in new and existing clients, both in Canada and the United States.
So they have really great growth in the US, which is keeping a lot of investors really bullish about this company. Now, just to be clear, not every company does full funnel marketing. In contrast to full funnel marketing, there is top funnel marketing approach, which focuses on a brand's awareness. So you probably know what Gucci or Louis Vuitton or Supreme is because these luxury companies have done a really good job at drilling into our brains what they do and why they do it and what kind of people own access to those brands. But because these brands rely on scarcity as a form of selling to us, they're not doing bottom funnel marketing, which is when a company focuses on closing the sale. You know, examples of this is, hey, you left this in your cart, come back and buy it because 30 other people are looking at it too. How many times have you seen that when you're online shopping? I see it all the time. If I leave a sweater in a cart on a website, I'll even sometimes get emails about it if they have access to my email, or I'll get, notification that like 40 other people have this in their carts too, so you better hurry up and get it. Or on websites like Temu or Shein, maybe you'll see discount codes very last minute, or those little cart spinning wheel things. You know what I'm talking about when you go on the website and it says click on this spinning wheel and maybe you'll win a huge discount, and then you get to your cart and it says apply this huge discount. And then there are companies that focus just on that bottom funnel marketing instead of doing the top funnel marketing. So maybe when you're scrolling on Facebook or you're scrolling on social media, you've seen those ads where you've never really heard about the company, but the dresses that they're selling look really, really pretty. And you're going, oh my gosh, that's a really pretty dress. Let me click on it. And you click on it and you see it's only $30. And you go, oh my gosh, $30 for a dress that looks that great. But I've never heard of this company. But they're encouraging you to put it in your cart and make that purchase. So you go to Reddit, maybe you say, hey, is this a scam? And then people will respond and say, yep, it's a scam. That company did not focus on any top funnel marketing. They did not focus on getting you aware of the brand. You kind of had to do your own research. They were just kind of focused on the end part of that deal, getting your money and maybe not even making sure that you come back. Aritzia does really differently. They're really focused on making you aware of what Aritzia is and what position it holds in your life, as well as getting you to the store or to the website, and then getting you to actually buy it, and then making you return so that you buy Aritzia again in the future, which many Canadian women can, talk about the first time they bought Aritzia 20 years ago and now they still shop at the store because Aritzia has done such a good job at making people come back. This brings me to my next point though, which is the in-store experience, which is again something that Aritzia is doing very uniquely. The store format has gone from roughly 1,500 square feet to around 10,000 square feet on average today. And my theory, based on what I've been seeing just more broadly in the market, is that a lot of companies focus on becoming your third space. Do you know what third spaces are? They're public places that are separate from your work and your home, where people can come together and interact and relax and chill out. This notion of a third space was coined by sociologist Ray Oldenburg. Remember in Friends when they all got together and they sat at Central Perk, the coffee shop? That little space that they had there where they all just hung out and talked was a third space. In 90s movies, or just maybe not in the movies, but in the 90s in general, people had third spaces because they were less connected online. So if you wanted to see your friend, you couldn't just go online and scroll through Instagram and see what they were doing. You actually had to go out and meet them in person. And because not everybody carried a cell phone in the 90s, you had to just have that spot where people hung out outside of their home and outside of school. It could be a park or a library or a community theater. Well, the great tragedy of our time, especially after the pandemic, is that these third spaces have been really robbed from us. We don't have a place where we can just hang out and, without being called solicitors or without being forced to buy something expensive. That's where Aritzia is getting really clever, because it is opening up cafes that you can treat like a third space while you're hanging out at Aritzia.
Oh, hi. The next time you're in Aritzia, check to see if they have the Aritzia Cafe.
Okay, this is my first time at the Aritzia Cafe. So we both got strawberry matchas. I got mine with oat milk.
Come check out Aritzia's new cafe with me. Aritzia just opened their largest store in Canada at Guildford Mall, and it's also their first in-store cafe in BC.
This is your reminder that if you spend $200 or more at an Aritzia that has an A-OK cafe attached to it, they'll give you a coin to redeem a free drink from their cafe.
Aritzia is not just a clothing store. It's a place where the CEO has said They want you to have a little coffee so you can hang out with people and really enjoy the shopping experience. And just looking at unsponsored reviews online on Reddit, it seems that people are really enjoying this coffee shop. People go specifically there for the coffee. And this cafes in clothing stores is not just an Aritzia thing, by the way. There are a lot of clothing stores that do it. When I lived on the Upper East Side of New York City, I used to go to the Ralph Lauren coffee shop quite often. And it's this beautiful coffee shop, great tasting coffee. Go in on my Sunday mornings or my Saturday mornings, I'd get myself a latte and then I'd walk around the store, which was 3 floors. And even though I wasn't buying anything, I was always aware of what was happening with Ralph Lauren. And then when I needed bed sheets, I would think about those really pretty ones I saw at the store. With online becoming so crowded because we're all online and we're all fighting for attention online, companies have found that if you can bring people into your space, maybe lure them in with a $5 or $6 coffee, then you have them in the 3D where you can now create an experience that can funnel them into buying something. I'd go in with the intention of coffee, but I would still be exposed to that brand every day. Like Ralph Lauren was living top of mind for me every time I would go to that coffee shop. And Aritzia is now using a similar model where you go in for coffee and you stay for the clothes. And the difference between Aritzia and Ralph Lauren is that Aritzia is a lot more affordable, which brings me to my next point. Speaking of affordability and luxury, when I was going through Aritzia's company presentations, there was one little diagram that stood out to me as, oh, this is what the company is trying to do right now. Here it is. It's this triangle. And what you see in the middle is where Aritzia is positioning itself in your mind. Aritzia's slogan is everyday luxury. The company prides itself on not being fast fashion and even above what they consider mid-market. Companies that are like the Gap, although they are very similar to Gap-owned Banana Republic in terms of pricing and what they offer. I looked this up, and this yellow sweater from Banana Republic is around $230 American, and a yellow cardigan from Aritzia is around $248 American, so the two are kind of comparable. Now, the reason they're able to consider themselves as everyday luxury is because of some of the ways that they operate behind the scenes in Hush Hush. They have a little bit of a price premium on products, so they can charge higher compared to something that is considered to be mid-market. Like this cashmere sweater from Uniqlo is $99 American compared to that $230 one that we saw just a second ago. So calling themselves everyday luxury allows them to justify pricing their products a certain way and offering a certain quality in exchange. So we've talked about the things that are doing well, the things that are unique to Aritzia and not just industry-wide practice. But where are the hiccups? Where could this company go wrong? Fashion, as we know from history, is a very finicky industry to invest in. One tiny little trend shift can just knock down an entire company. Now, one of the things that cushions Aritzia and keeps it a little bit safer than the kind of viral hype that we see with other companies is that it's been around for so long. They do have a loyal following of people. They also have a pretty diversified offering in terms of what they offer. They're not like just offering athleisure or athletic wear or just offering one style of clothing that may go out of trend. They do offer yoga pants. They do offer casual workwear. They do offer things that you can lounge around in the house in. But that doesn't mean that they can weather any storm that comes their way. One of the reasons that people keep coming back to Aritzia is something that they've done very intentionally, which is building relationships. According to data from McKinsey's State of Fashion Report 2025, 60% of shoppers cited poorly trained or poorly prepared staff members as the cause of discontent in their stores. If you walk into H&M and Zara and you don't really feel acknowledged, or you feel like they're not helping you, or you go try on something in the changing room and you can't get another size unless you go out and do it yourself, you can't just ask somebody to get it for you, that can be really frustrating for a lot of shoppers, and then that will make them just not want to go into that store at all. So something Aritzia has done is really worked on maintaining a kind of relationship with the customer that the CEO highlights on their call. Here is a direct quote from CEO of Aritzia, Jennifer Wong. "The first thing to do is connect and get a read. Once we're able to determine what the client is looking for, it starts off a relationship where the client then sees how beneficial it is to work with a style advisor. At the same time, if you get the 'I'm just browsing' response, I think that's obviously the cue. And thankfully, our style advisors are people. We really believe in a personalized relationship, and so when you walk into our stores, it is highly personalized in that we are inspired by the luxury brands. Many of our style advisors have literal relationships with the clients, where the clients come back time and time again seeking out the style advisor because they've established a relationship. But the thing that could take down Aritzia a notch is something that's hurting a lot of companies right now. According to the same report from McKinsey, online fashion marketplaces are facing an existential business model challenge and disruption. There's been a 60% increase in e-commerce customer acquisition from 2017 to 2022. I guess because we spend so much of our time online and now we have so much choice. The economic model of online marketplaces is also under threat because of the existence of fast fashion. New products are added to Shein's platform daily, almost 2,000 to 10,000 items. Wow. That is a lot. That is a lot of items. Shein introduces so much and so rapidly that it kind of drowns out any other brand that is doing anything, even if they position themselves really uniquely like Aritzia has with the everyday luxury label. Now that said, Aritzia is still investing in its e-commerce side. We can speculate all we want about the future of Aritzia, and it's really fun to do that. I mean, that's entirely what a lot of people in finance do, and they do it professionally, and they get paid a lot of money for it. But despite the predictions that we make and the economic factors that we look at, it's always really difficult to get things right with 100% accuracy. So all we can really do is say, okay, here's what they're doing well. Here's what challenges that they are currently facing in the market. We can kind of deduce, okay, this is where the company might go a year from now or 5 years from now. Obviously, factors like an entire pandemic are not predictable, or a tariff war is not predictable. But in Aritzia's case, seeing as how things have gone for them in the past year, if they continue with their US expansion and building out their e-commerce site and investing in those relationships and getting people in stores, it looks like there might be a case to be optimistic about where Aritzia can go. We'll be doing an update on Aritzia on my Patreon in the next week or so, because I'll be attending a call and hearing what the CEO and the company executives are saying about their latest update and how their company is doing. You can join the Devil Wears Data Patreon. It supports this channel, which I work on entirely independently, so I would love your support. But let me know what you think of Aritzia. Let me know if you shop there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again real soon.